Hey everybody, welcome to the show. I'm your host, Chris Gennaro. My co-host is Rizk, and today we have Horrendous. How you doing, guys?
Hey.
All right.
And let's just start with just a couple intros, just telling who you are, who that person was that just walked by, and what you do in the band.
Al, you want to go?
Sure. My name is Alex. I play bass in Horrendous. I'm the newest member of the fray, the only non-original member. That was my partner, Chelsea, meandering in the background. And yeah.
And Scout's the dog, if you see
Scout's
Scout.
the dog. I haven't seen her yet, but you'll catch her eventually.
And my name is Jamie. I'm the drummer, and that's about it.
Okay, I mean, since you mentioned it, Alex, let's just get into how you joined the band. I think this is the last album was the first album that you were on, I'm pretty sure.
Yes, sir.
And I think Matt and Damien split the bass duties prior to this on the previous albums. So I mean, you probably don't have the backstory, or maybe you've heard it a couple times about what the decisions were to get you in the band and how how that came about.
I know it all. We're not. Luckily for me, I'm. Though I may have been a hired gun at one point, Jamie, Matt, and Damien are all like super, super close, like friends, family. Jay and Matt live very close to me. I see them all the time. Not as much this year as I would have liked, unfortunately. But we're super close. So all of the details I'm privy to, thankfully. And Jay can add a little bit of the, some of the story that happens before my arrival, but I was working at a coffee shop in Center City, Philadelphia, and Matt was actually coming into the coffee shop and eating breakfast in the mornings. He lived nearby at the time, and he came in one day and he had a Voivod shirt on, and I was playing some wacky music over the speakers, and I was like, I did the Punisher thing of like, cool shirt. And he asked about the music, and he came to like that we were both players, and he did the thing that you also hear often where somebody finds out you play music and he's like, we should get together and jam sometime. And you're like, oh yeah, sure. And then Matt took my number and diligently, like within like a couple of weeks maybe, was like, hey, what are you up to? And ended up coming over to my house and playing and messing around. And I did not know that he was in Horrendous at this point. I didn't know what the deal was, but we touched base, we played. It was a lot of fun. I didn't see him a whole lot after that, but about a year later, Horrendous was sort of working on this question, and they were playing a show at Union Transfer in Philadelphia, which was the Choosing Death Fest, if you guys remember that. It was the
Decibel.
show. Yeah, exactly. It was a show to celebrate the release of that Choosing Death book that they put out. And Horrendous was getting a lot of offers at the time, and they're trying to figure out this question of like, we've got bass on all the records, we should have bass live, blah, blah, blah. And Jay, I want Jay to hop in about sort of there was sort of an interim where we were juggling a couple of people actually. But they asked me if I would play that show, if I was interested. And at that point it was just sort of like, yeah, you need a fill-in for this one gig? Sure. That was 7 years ago, 6 years ago.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, so
Time flies.
crazed. But I learned the tunes, and then they invited me to rehearse with them, and like had an absolute blast. And we played the show, and after that, it was like the rest is history, I guess.
So how much of that is you writing stuff after the fact, or how much of it is like you learning like note for note what they were doing on the album?
So I was like a stickler a little bit, like, before I was like buddies with them, I didn't know what to expect. Like, I felt like it was like, it was, my ass was like about to get torn up, like I wanted to nail everything perfectly. And I was like kind of nervous, but little did I know that like everyone in the band is super open to like, they knew that I had background in different types of music and that like I liked improvising a lot. And they were essentially like, you play whatever you want. So I learned a lot of the record parts and like still play a lot of those lines note for note, but also it was like, if you want to do some crazy fill that doesn't exist, we go for it. And that's really my vibe. That's just how I like to approach musical situations in general. So I just went with that. And it was at the end of after getting comfortable and I wasn't nervous anymore and I like made a connection with them. It was just like, I was playing the songs differently every night. I still do to this day.
Yeah, I mean, we like sent, you know, he hears the songs. This wasn't a thing where he comes to practice and we're like, all right, here's how you play this riff. Like Al's the kind of guy who's, like he said, he does a lot of improv type stuff. Like he's very good at just picking things up. So he would show up for the first practice and like can just play everything. It's like, well, just honestly play what you want. Like, you know what the songs are supposed to be. You can clearly handle this on your own. Like, we don't really care. What you're going to play is clearly going to be fine. So just run with it.
They gave me a lot of space, which was like maybe not something everyone would expect working with a metal band at all.
Well, also, I don't think everyone would be I feel like you're a case that some other people might not fit into. You know what I mean? Like some people you're gonna have to show them every riff. You're like, just please play this, and like don't do not leave these riffs. But it's a case by case thing. But Al Q is a guy who can handle a lot. So I'll say that.
You mentioned Decibel Magazine. It seems like you guys have an ongoing relationship with them. I think Anaretta was, I want to say, album of the year or something like that for them. And then you guys did a single flexi disc with them. So where did that relationship sort of start, and how is, what else is there to it?
I think the first time that we really had any, well, so early on, like they reviewed our demo, Sweet Blasphemies and the Chills, and they reviewed them well, and they clearly liked it, which was cool. I think where it first really started was Decibel Tour. It had to be like 2014 or 15, whenever Behemoth was the headliner. At the time, we were all, the three of us, minus Alex, were living in Columbia, South Carolina. Well, I was living up here. Matt and Damien were down there, but I would go down there to play essentially. Decibel had asked us to be the local opener for the Charlotte, North Carolina date of that tour, which we hadn't played any big show before. That was probably like our fifth or sixth show, and the other ones were just like in tiny bars in Columbia to like people that do not care about metal, kind of a thing. So, I mean, that when we were doing that was like the height of or the tail end of like metalcore. So like every heavy show we were on was just like breakdown band, which is, it's fine. I'm not talking shit on that, but it was anyway, so we get asked to play this. It's like, a real metal show with huge bands. This is sick. That was our first experience, and we just like loved it, and kind of, I don't know at what point, but we had a little bit more contact with them after that, and they really loved Ectasis when that came out, and I just think we were on their radar, and they're really nice people, and we got along with them well. And after Anaretta, they within the year asked us to do the 2017 Decibel Tour, which was crazy because we're not like a huge touring band, just here and there kind of, and they've just been really good to us ever since then. We've met a lot of the people many times, and I guess they believe in what we do, which is great, and we really appreciate their support and love what Decibel does. So it just, I don't know, it works well.
So they just told you like, hey, just do a flexi disc for our magazine, and we're just like,
yeah. I mean, I think they were just kind of like, do you guys want to do this? We're like, yeah, why not? Sure.
Part of what makes that a little bit easier too is that Damien is an audio engineer and records all of the records.
Yeah. So like for that song, because that was not long after Anaretta came out, like within like a month, I think they asked us to do it. And we had like a song with like a leftover song from Anaretta with like one or two riffs that were like fine. So we're like, let's just get together for a weekend and like bang the song out and record it in a week. And we did, which is kind of fast for us, and it turned out pretty cool.
Cool. So yeah, I was noticing that too. Yeah, Damien produced most of the albums, but didn't Kurt Kurt Ballou did Ecdysis, right?
No, is all Damien actually.
He did all of it? Why did I
Yep.
read that he worked on that? That was a false piece of information online somewhere. I was like looking.
Damien's like fucking would like roll in his seat if he heard that.
Yeah, I have to like correct the site because I was like looking. I was curious like who produced. I think the records sound really good. They sound really good. So
I think Damien would invite the comparison to a degree, but he'd be, I think it's a producer that he does like, I will say.
Okay.
But,
yeah, for sure.
all right.
But yeah,
so
it's all been Damien since
that.
day one, which has been really made things very easy on our end.
Awesome. Yeah, it's awesome. Helps. And then how did you hook up in the beginning with Dark Descent Records, like for the very first full length?
Wow, yeah. So this would have been like 2009, I guess. I'm trying to think where to start this story because there's a lot of places this could start. Because I met Damien. Damien and I are the same year in college. My brother is 2 years younger than me, and he ended up coming to the same college. So I met Damien early on, but then like when Matt came is when we started jamming together. We put together some songs, played a couple local shows for fun. It was cool. But Damien, he had been like teaching himself to record since sometime in high school. He's like, we should record a demo and send it out. A side story is he like used that for like, because his major was something like media arts with like a recording focus. And he used that as his like senior thesis type thing, like our demo, basically. Which is kind of funny.
That's cool.
But yeah, so we recorded it, and he's just like, I'm just going to send this out to like, the underground labels that are going right now. Like he sent it to like we talked to Razorback I don't know if you remember Razorback, right? Maybe they're still going, but like Ghoul was their big band back in the day, I think.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
He sent it around to like a bunch of labels like that, and Dark Descent in collaboration with Skeleton Plague. I don't know if you remember that label. They were like a tapes only label, I think, at the time. They co-released the demo, which probably came out in 2010. So Damien just basically sent it around. Dark Descent showed some interest. I think at the time, Dark Descent had like 3 or 4 releases, only one of which was like not a demo. So it was like, this was like very early on with Dark Descent. And he just dug it, and we were like, you'll press our tape and it's going to be like on a red cassette. Like, yeah, we'll release it with you. Sure, man. So it's just, because at the time, Dark Descent was very new.
That was the selling point. Like, okay.
Well, it's like, you're a band, it's like someone's going to put out, because we're quite a bit younger at this point, so it's like, none of our bands had released anything on a label. Sure. So, got any interest, we're like, hell yeah, we're going to do it.
Yeah,
so we just ran with it.
Dream come true at that point.
Yeah. And then, Dark Descent obviously got a lot bigger with time, which was, cool.
Yeah.
But at the time, it was Damien just sent it out to a bunch of underground labels and for fun to see if anyone would bite on it.
Okay. And the last album, though, is Season of Mist. And so you guys switched because of just change it up, or what?
Yeah, just change it up. Try something new. Try to, get it out to maybe a different audience as well. We're still friends with Matt Calvert, and he still like does our mail order. Like there's no hard feelings or anything, but just want to try something new. Yeah.
I think it's funny that you're the drummer and the older brother, because I know tons and tons of guitarist drummer sibling pairs.
Yeah.
And in almost every instance, the guitarist is the older brother. And then like makes the younger brother play drums. So, I know like 24 pairs like that. It's
yeah,
the thing.
Well, the reason is because in Matt, he basically like made my parents get him a guitar in like 6th grade, and after a couple of months of lessons, I was like, I gotta play something here, man. Like we gotta make a band or something. And at the time, I started playing bass. Actually, our buddy.
Got
a drum
let it be
kit.
known. Nobody knows this. Jamie is a fucking killer bass player.
Oh shit. Okay, cool.
Yeah, so I started playing bass with Matt and our buddy and we played for years, which is great. I kind of started playing drums just out of necessity because there wasn't a drummer. Mm-hmm. Not much before our demo, honestly. it was like Matt and it was just the two of us. It's like, you can't do anything with just guitar and bass. Like I got to start like playing drums or something. Right. So that's kind of how I started doing drums. But basically Matt started playing guitar and I was like, I got to do something that's not guitar. So that's why I'm the drummer, even though I'm older.
Yeah. It's still a similar situation despite Jamie being the elder brother.
Yeah.
So Matt just got started first, and it was basically
yeah. We went to our friend's house, and this guy had a guitar. He was a lot older than us. Matt just like picked it up and like strummed it. The next day he was like, I'm getting you a guitar. It's like, what? And that's just how it started. Yeah.
That's like so Matt. I never heard that story actually.
I got to ask you about playing with Creator, just because if the interview ends and then I have forgotten to ask that, I would be super annoyed with myself. So talk about playing with Creator and how that came about, because being a longtime metalhead, that they were like one of the first bands you get into, in the late 80s, because when there was only like a dozen bands doing that type of music, they were one of the bands.
Yeah.
I
mean, it was really Decibel that kind of made that happen. We didn't have any contact with creators like management or anything like that. Decibel, so it was Creator was the headliner, then Obituary, Midnight, and ourselves was the full lineup. And
crazy.
It was, yeah. I mean, at the time, obviously, it's like I'm touring with Creator and Obituary. Like, that's really weird because I heard Creator first when I was like 16 probably or something, right? I mean, it was a wild experience, and I don't know. There's a lot I could say. We could talk all night about this tour. Honestly, it was a month-long experience with like a lot of highs and lows. It was great. Yeah, it was great playing with Creator. Like honestly, they were like in an echelon where we like barely interacted with them. That's just we're the opener of the tour. That's just how it is. That's fine.
Yeah.
Obituary, I will say, were like really cool dudes, and like we had a great time with them. They were really great to us. As was Midnight, also same thing. Really, really great guys. Who we had one larger tour before that ever with Tribulation, which was like 2 weeks. So this is a month-long tour, our first real big thing, and Midnight and Obituary really were good to us, knowing that this was our first time. I think they really helped us out in a number of different ways, between making us more comfortable, just helping with gear problems and stuff.
Awesome. Actually, side note, I saw you guys on the Tribulation tour in New York City at Knitting.
Oh, that was Bowery Electric, right?
What? I thought it was Knitting Factory.
I think it was Knitting Factory, yeah.
That was a good show. That was a good show.
That was a good show.
We got some stories from that night too, but those are for a different day.
Yeah,
that was a wild night.
Might not be interview friendly.
Yeah, that was a wild night for Horrendous. Yeah.
I'm gonna piggyback off what Jason. I'm glad you're asking about this because of the pandemic year, I feel like a lot of my like memories of the before times have kind of like started to fizzle out. And like have the opportunity to talk about it like this, like certain very great memories like are starting to slip away from me a little bit. With Obituary and Creator, just piggybacking off of Jay, Obituary is still very much like you watch those videos of them in the 90s, and like when you go talk to them or hang out with them now, like especially I'm gonna blank on their names, but especially particular members of the band, they're exactly the same. Like my first memory, it was on the first day of the tour. I walked to the back green room, and Trevor, the guy who's been playing the Stratocaster all this time, fucking awesome move. He was just playing. He had a Nasty Savage record on, and he was just playing all the riffs like that. He was just sitting there, and he was like, "What's up?" Like he was like not in like a pretentious way at all. He was like stoked that we were there, like right off the bat. And that kind of persisted throughout the tour, which is really great. Creator, on the other hand, I feel like they're like maybe a little bit, I don't know if they're a little bit older, just it happened to be like a few years older or something, but like they're definitely more like, they're the headliners. They've got like a whole stage show. They're dealing with a lot of bureaucracy and stuff. They have like, it didn't feel like they have that same sort of personal attitude.
Mhm.
And there's also the language barrier as well.
Yeah.
Just adding on top of all that. So we just
Sure.
didn't get to interact with them very much. I will say the one memory I have is the bass player. I don't even know. I don't think he's an original member. I could be wrong.
I don't think
Super
so.
old guy, super thin guy, super old guy. This is the only time we ever interacted. We were loading out, and I just happened to walk by him, and I was like, hey, like, how are you? And he was like, he had his bass like hanging around him, and it was super low, and he was like sort of playing his bass and not saying anything, and he was like, it's a great bass. And he was like, and then he picked it up, and he was like, he just like passed it to me, you know, like without even really, he was like, you want to try it? And I was like, sure. And I like sat down and was just like, I don't know what I'm doing. And then gave it back to him. That's the only thing we said to him the entire tour. That was it. That was our only interaction.
Okay.
But I remember getting my CD binders from my friends as a 13, 14-year-old with Pleasure to Kill in it. And like those early Obituary records. So like just here, you know, they played songs from those records, and being on the tour was definitely surreal.
Yeah. I mean, every night on tour, you play first. So you're like, you're stressed, you get it over with. And then it's like, you have all these massive sets for like 25 days in a row to watch. It's sick. It was great. We had a great time.
That's pretty awesome.
It was wild.
Did you record a lot, any of that stuff? I mean, that's the bummer for me, like having played shows in the like the late 80s. Like I have no record. There's no record of any of that shit.
Yeah,
you know?
shit.
I have a lot of pictures. I probably have a couple like phone videos if I like really dug back, but we have some memories for sure that are, you know.
We got some stuff in the vault.
And then I guess I'll piggyback on my own statement is that, you know, with the pandemic and stuff, I've seen that you guys have done at least once, maybe a few more of these like broadcast shows. I want to say one was from St. Vitus, maybe.
Yep.
Am I remembering that correctly? So how do you get involved in that? And what's the sort of experience doing these like online shows? Like,
What do you think, Q?
Well, for Vitus, in terms of like, we had two live stream shows throughout this period. The Vitus one was first. That was sort of like a Vitus calling out to like the Vitus family and being like, hey, we want to do the show and try to raise some money because they're struggling. Like at least.
Yeah, I mean, it was partially a benefit for them for sure.
And like Vitus has been like our home away from home, like longer for everyone else, but even since I joined, like we've been there countless times. They've always taken care of us. Everyone that works there. So they asked us to do it, and like there's a few kind of wild. Again, there's like these details that I don't want to forget, and they're not necessarily relevant to your question. We're going to say them anyway. The after election day, and like everybody's fucking out and about and running around, we ended up taking a walk into Center City and running into my friend Tim Usler, who used to be my boss when I was in the restaurant industry, and now he works for Jim Beam. And we told him that we were going to do this Vitus show, and he was just like, we should get Jim Beam to sponsor the show. Like, he's a huge metalhead, and he's the only one in the company who's a huge metalhead. So long story short, they did, and he showed up, and they gave Vitus some money to cover costs for like.
Oh, that's amazing! Look at that. How things like, come together like that.
Yeah, and it was super fun. He was the only person there other than the camera crew and the sound guy, and like, you know, Vitus employees. So it was like we got to play to an audience of one, which was like kind of sick. And yeah, I mean, Jay, you can talk about the Decibel show, but they just asked us to do it. We love Vitus. We wanted to support them, and it was honestly, at that point, that was the most fun I had the entire pandemic. Like,
I don't think we played with you until the practices for that show.
No.
For like I don't know, 8 months or something crazy, or with Damien for that matter.
Yeah, it's the longest we had gone without not playing with each other.
Very long time. So it gave us an excuse to get back together, start jamming again, and it felt great, honestly. Like being on stage. I mean, I don't know. It just, even though there was no one there, people still performed as if there were individual, a big audience, and we had a great time. And watching it was wild too. We don't usually watch our sets, so we're throwing back a bunch of beers with a bunch of friends and watching it. It was a good time.
Cool.
But yeah, the Decibel one, they just, you know, they put together a streaming kind of a fest to celebrate their 200th issue. We got asked, so of course, you know, we're going to do that. That was a lot different because we played in a record store, you know, not with a stage or anything. But it was kind of a fun experience for that reason. We were like, Matt and I were like buying CDs right before our set. It's kind of
What did you buy? Anything?
Matt got
Cannibal Corpse.
the Bleeding Cannibal Corpse CD.
Okay.
I actually got a Joan of Arc CD. I don't know if you. It's not a metal. It's a well outside the world of metal, but they're just like, it was really cheap, and I was like, shit, I wanted to get this for a while, but it was we were playing. They kind of pushed apart some of the racks for CDs and stuff to make room for us, and like, but the store was still open while we were setting up and warming up. So like, there would be people coming in and would stop and like watch us play and be like, oh, interesting.
It was wild.
Or like, there are these big windows, like kids were running over because there's a playground right next door. The record, kids were running up, looking in the window, like, what's going on in here? Just a fun experience.
Cool.
But yeah, but in both cases, we just got asked to do it, and we're like, why wouldn't we? We've been sitting on our asses for months, you know, and
we want to play. We miss playing.
Yeah.
Of course. What is on the horizon now then for the future for the band? That's
Oh boy,
things are starting to open back up and all that.
For you know, playing live, I don't know yet. I feel like it's too early for us to plan anything at this point. But I mean, we're like, I would say 2/3 through recording the new record, so
wow.
that'll be
Great.
That'll be done. I would imagine, but like mix and stuff by the end of the summer, probably. I don't know when it'll come out. It kind of depends when we send the masters in. It might not be till next year, but it would probably be early next year if that's the case.
Okay.
But that's the next thing we've been working on the record these last couple months.
This will be the first public mention of this.
Oh shit! I know. Yes.
Yeah.
So
At least with that much detail anyway.
I mean, how much of it is writing remote, and how much of it now is actually then getting together finally?
Yeah, well, it's been it's funny because we actually started recording before quarantine, like fall 2019.
Oh, okay.
The way that we do it, we just meet for like long weekends, basically. And in the past, records would be like, oh, let's do all the drums first, then we'll do guitars. This time we were like, because, you know, when you're on like, you know, hour 6 of drums, everyone's just like, I want to kill myself. This sucks. So we're like, for all weekend, if you're just doing that, it's terrible for everyone, including myself.
Yeah.
So it's like we had this idea, like, what if we'll meet for a long weekend and just do one song and everyone does everything. So that's what we've been doing for this record, which has been really fun. And we started that pre-quarantine, and we kind of stopped from like March through January of this year, maybe, or something like that.
Yeah.
And picked it up again, which has been fun. We've done some remote writing. Matt and I have just jammed a ton of stuff. So Matt and I live very close to each other, and we kind of agreed, like, we're just going to be a COVID pod, like, whatever. We can't not play. Mm-hmm. So we worked on it a lot. We sent stuff back and forth with Al Q. Al came. He came a couple times, like, here and there. Once we did the Vita set thing, we kind of opened things up. We've been playing a lot more together.
Yeah.
And same with Damien. Like, once after that, we've been meeting to write stuff between recording sessions. So it's been a weird mix of.
It's been everything.
Writing together, writing separately. You know, some songs were done a year and a half ago. It's really, you know, strange because of the circumstances, but it's coming together pretty nicely. We're excited about it.
Cool. That's awesome. And it'll be released, well, I guess, well, I don't know if you can even say that. Will Season of Mist release it, or you can't even say
it? Yes, for sure.
Okay. Yeah.
Unless they change their mind when we send the master in, but otherwise, yes.
I read in one of your other interviews, and I'll put the links in the bottom just so I don't feel like I'm ripping anybody else off, but you were talking a little bit about, you know, talking to Century Media, and that they were trying to get you to sign for 7 CDs or albums or whatever, and it didn't work out. And I'm just like, the thought of signing for 7 CDs to me is like,
I don't know if that's like completely true, but it is true that, so like after we put out the Chills, you know, this is 2012 we're talking here, so it's a long time ago. I think Century Media has gone through, their leadership has changed, I think. So I don't know if it's even the same people, but
no, I'm sure
at the time that was like the one deal that we got from like a big label, and we were like, oh, this is really cool. But the details were not that cool. And I think, you know, we met with some people and they were just like, you guys like probably shouldn't do this. And we were like, all right. I don't think it was 7 albums, but it was. And again, I think Century is run by different people by now, so I'm not talking shit, but it was a bad deal at the time that like we might have fallen into if we had not gotten advice from other individuals. So I'm glad we didn't do that.
This is some real shit though, right? And I don't know how often people talk about this. One, because they're not going to talk about their labels because they don't want to make their labels look bad, and two, because like if people are talking about this, it's usually because they got burned and they had a bad experience. But this is the thing that happens, right? Where like the record label stuff is serious business. It's business.
Yeah.
And there are contracts with lots of fine print, and things are really complicated, and you're required to do certain things, and you're signing off rights and blah, blah, blah. And a lot of labels, not naming any particular names, but a lot of labels will catch these people who are, luckily that's not, I mean, maybe back when the Chills came out, they were that band, but some of these bands that just put out their first record or an EP or something, and they get thrown into the situation which they hear a name like Century Media, and they're like, yes, 100%. But like, it's more complicated than that, right? Mm-hmm. That's my other roommate, Stevie, by the way.
Okay.
But yeah, and that's just a real thing that happens. And I don't hear enough people talking about it. And you know, it's like, I know a lot of people have gotten totally screwed not knowing what they were actually in for and not being able to show out for it. So
yeah. I mean, we were literally like, I think I'm the oldest one in the band. I was probably like 22 at the time or something. Matt was like, he would have been maybe 20. We did, you know, we had no idea what we were doing. And the funny thing is actually Matt was teaching guitar lessons at the time for like a part-time job. And one of his clients was a lawyer who was like, I don't know, 30s or 40s. And we, you know, they sent us his contracts. We're like, can you look at this? And he's the one, he was just like, I don't think you guys want to do this, man. We had this like big meeting with him. That was the final thing. He was just like, don't do this. We're like, all right, fine.
And I don't think it's talking shit about anybody. I mean, if I'm running a business and I got kids that want to sign a record contract, and I know that, and I might be tempted to write like, you know, and you need to pay me back for everything.
Yeah. I mean,
you know,
you always hear the stories about like Earache back in the day, right? I mean, with like, you know, like Carcass and stuff when they were really young, and you know, it happens.
It's a thing.
Yeah.
It's a thing.
For sure.
We've luckily,
I'm glad we didn't do it.
Yeah. And they've all been really diligent about, you know, like looking things over whenever new things come out. You know, the jump to season was like a really big it wasn't rushed.
We spent like a year and a half between like them offering and us like accepting. It was a long drawn out process on our end. We don't like making big decisions, so it took some time.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's nice because I think a lot of the indie record labels now just don't have contracts. You know, it's like,
which is a whole other mess.
What?
I mean, Dark Descent, we've never had a contract or anything. Like we've never signed anything. It's always just like, you want to do this? Yep. Okay, cool.
But
that's
why
how
should
it's always been.
You know, for that little money, and I've often said that there's no money in metal, right? At least
not much.
You know, but like, why would you have needed a contract for that type of thing? You know?
No, I mean, back then I think it would have been silly. I'm glad we didn't. It made much more sense to just be like, let's go about this like we're friends, and now we are friends, and it just makes more sense. I don't know.
Yeah, I noticed, by the way, speaking of which, a lot of your stuff is sold out, like when you go to Bandcamp and stuff like that. No, but it's just like sold out. I mean, that's got to be great for you guys. Are there plans to repress any of that stuff? You know?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, for the Dark Descent, like he just repressed Ectasis a couple months ago. I think we did sell out of like the colored vinyl. I think we can probably get some more from Dark Descent. I know that he's going to do Anaretta soon. He said that's like in the works. For Season, I think they just got a new press of Idol that was out of print. So I think we should have that back up again.
Is that third pressing?
I think so. Pretty sure it's third.
Jesus.
The shirts being out of stock is just us being lazy. The records are not our fault. No.
Yeah.
But everything is getting repressed soon if it's not already there. Yeah.
But the shirts are your fault.
The shirts are our fault. Yeah.
We'll take.
Well, it's like at a certain point, you're not when you're not playing shows. It's like, do you really want to press like 60 shirts if there's no event? I don't know.
Yeah. No. I've had to live with boxes of CDs that like weren't going anywhere for.
Yeah. We all have. We've been there.
Yeah, you're like, shit, should I just throw a mattress on these things and like I can turn it into a bed maybe or something? But
yeah. That being said, I think in the next couple of months we'll probably press more because things are ramping up now and.
Yeah, I hear October for.
October. Well, yeah, we'll see.
Yeah. We
shall see.
One other thing I was going to bring up, I was glad you mentioned somebody wearing a Voivod shirt because I was listening. I wish I would have remembered what song it was on Idol, but I was like, oh, there's almost like a little Voivod thing going on. And I always get freaked out about mentioning stuff like that on interviews because I feel like I'm going to say, yeah, was that a Voivod thing? And then I'm going to be like, yeah, I never even heard of them. Fuck them. And then I would like look like an idiot. But clearly, you guys, somebody likes Voivod. And
yeah. That's like one of
sure.
the more universally dug groups between. I mean, I don't know about Damien, but I'm fairly certain.
I don't think he dislikes them. This is probably not his cup of tea. But I mean, Matt's been like a massive Voivod fan for some time, and I'm these days I'm a pretty big fan. I know Alex likes them too. So yeah. There's probably some influence leaking in, whether intentional or not, on whatever riff you're thinking of.
Yeah, this is like a little bit nerdy, and I'm just gonna leave this here in case there are any nerds that are out there. But like, there's like this whole tone / like half diminished thing that is in a lot of Voivod riffs. That's like what makes it sound creepy and sci-fi-ish for everything. It's just that they use those intervals a lot, and like I use them as much as I can, like for everything. So that's definitely there, and like that's like a band that I'm always like, oh yeah, they do that all the time. That's why I like them. It just sounds cool.
It's always a good comparison. If someone says there's sounds like Voivod a little bit,
yeah,
you're like, all right,
sure.
that's cool.
I'll take that any day.
Yeah.
And so I guess maybe talk about a little bit about the progression between the albums. I know I saw again with past interviews you were saying that I think Anaretta was a little bit more technical than the previous album. I think Idol seems to have like some trippier stuff on it, which is maybe like the sort of the Voivod thing I was talking about. So I guess talk about what, if any of that stuff was intentional, or what your feelings about the different styles between the records.
Sure. I mean, I personally feel like our albums are all very different, and everyone that has a band probably thinks that about their albums, but to me, like, I feel like we've really tried to push ourselves each time, and that's just why they're different. It's just because each time we're about to do an album, we're in a different place. We've gotten into all this new music that we weren't aware of before. We're better players, and we're like trying new stuff. So that's kind of like the basic reason in my mind why they all sound a little different. So I mean, early on with the demo, Matt and I didn't really listen to we listened to some death metal, like we loved Death and other big bands like Behemoth and stuff, but I didn't listen to Entombed. I had never heard them. So Damien brought that again, this is like 2008, 2009. Damien brought that into the fold. And we're like, oh, Matt and I were more like thrash, classic heavy metal type dudes. We're like, oh, we can mix this with Entombed and write some cool stuff, and we did. Then there's the Chills. It's like, let's take these things a bit further, because the demo was written very quickly. The Chills, let's take a little more time, explore some wilder ideas. Ectasis, I think we realized we wanted to like make music that felt really big in terms of like, for example, like when I heard Judas Priest, it's like it's huge music. It's like stadium music. We wanted to like make the sound bigger, incorporate some different things like that, not just Swedish sounding stuff with thrash. You know what I mean? You know, we experimented with some acoustic songs in there, and like a lot of really melodic stuff, I guess, on Ecdysis too, that wasn't as apparent in some of the earlier work. For Anaretta, because we wrote that pretty quickly after Ecdysis, I don't think we had anything in mind. It was just more, let's just keep pushing ourselves forward. We can play a little bit better than we did on Ecdysis, so let's utilize our skills in new ways. Idol was kind of a big jump, I think. There's a lot of time between the two records. Obviously, Alex being involved was another factor too. What happened is, honestly, like we went on these big tours in 2016 and 2017, right after Anaretta, and we kind of got like, I feel like we were a little burned out in a way, and like lost our footing and needed to, you know, like the plan was not as clear as it had been before that, in a weird way. I don't know how to explain like why that's the case, but that's how it felt, I think. So for Idol, we were in this mindset of like we've done these albums. We need to like really push ourselves into new territory. I don't want to say like trying to be proggier, because that's not really what it's about, but like writing types of riffs we've never written before. And I think the tone for that one is a lot different too. It's a much more like, for me, it feels like a claustrophobic feel, and the way the other ones weren't. It's much more like I feel like it's stressful for me to hear it. Yeah. And I honestly, at the time, we were in very, very stressful periods of our life. For everyone had a different reason, but like I think that really came out on that album. So it's like, to me, that album feels very, very intense and stressful, and it's like, I guess, trying to face that or just spit it out into a record. Yeah. And I feel like that, to me, that one feels like a huge jump from Anaretta in terms of tone. And for the next one, I think it's going to be even different than that. I won't say too much because you'll hear it eventually. But I don't know if you want to chime in on anything, Al.
Yeah, I mean, it's the really fun thing about this question is that I get to view those first three records in a way that those guys can't, because I wasn't a part of them. Like, I listened to those albums like pretty, like as a listener and not as like a creator of the thing, since I wasn't there, which is really strange experience, you know, because like when you work with a band and you're making things and you hear it, like you just hear what you hear what you wrote, you hear what you worked on, you hear what you play, like what you chose when you're going through the recording process, and you're like not really like experiencing it as like as a beholder or something.
And I still forget that you haven't sometimes, because you've played Ozymandias like 100 times.
I know,
or like 200 times. I forget that too.
And that does change it a little bit. Like there's a familiarity, like there's a deep intimacy with those songs that I think pulls me a little bit out of that. But the main thing that I think is really interesting about at least like what people say about the records is that like Horrendous has been doing weird shit since the beginning. Like there's a 9-minute long like crazy suite on the Chills, the Eye of Madness.
Eye of Madness, yeah.
Yet never played live.
I remember dude, our first show at St. Vitus, just real quick here, after the Chills, this guy brought us up from South Carolina, which was sick. To us was like, oh shit, we get to play in New York. That's awesome. We were, you know, just a power trio. There's no bass, and like one of the people in like the small audience was like, play Eye of Madness. And I remember Matt on the mic being like, you know, we're going to do that when we come back next time, when this place is like 3 times as full and we're a much bigger, like he didn't say it like, not like it's, sorry, that sounds much more dickish, but he's essentially said like, once we're like a real band, we're going to do that for you. And in my head, I was just like, are we ever going to be playing to Vitus when it's full? Yeah. Just funny.
No, like that shit was wild. And then like Ecdysis even has like all these like really intricate like transitions and like weird little like additional tags on riffs. Like, you know, because a lot of the conversation with Idol and me coming to the band is just like, you know, that the band's getting like proggier and like they're a tech metal band now. It's just like, been doing the same shit ever since they started. Like everyone's a freak. It's you know what it is? It's that combined with the fact that Damien's production chops have like grown 20-fold. Like he's become more and more like, you know, it sounded like an old school demo from a nobody band in the 90s when it started. Now it sounds like Heartwork. You know, like that's a big difference. There's still a part of the same ilk, but it just sonically the experience is entirely different. I'm rambling and I'm really sorry.
Well, also real quick, we'll add the way that because he records our albums, we have infinite time to like in the studio, right? Which most bands don't have. So you might think you're going to go in the studio like, all right, in 8 hours, everyone's going to, you know, record their part and that's it. Like we will spend like 3 full days and like still not be done the song because we're spending so much time being like, Damien will be like, what if I play this crazy harmony? Or it's just like little shit like that. We spend so much damn time on, which I think is we're very lucky to be able to do that. And I think it comes out in the music as well.
Yeah, I agree. The amount of Easter eggs on the records is like hilariously large. But anyway, I love those records. Like honestly, like Anoretta is like it's one of my favorite metal records of the 21st century, and like I would think that regardless of whether I was in the band. But for Idol, it was also in the middle of that was like when Trump got elected. So
yeah,
like,
that was also that time too.
In addition to the fact that all of us had like mega stressful things going on, like everybody was freaking the fuck out.
Like, yeah, with the world was coming apart. Yeah.
You know, like, and there were so many things that were just so all over the place, and like Idol is all over the place. Like we listened to it for the first time together not that long ago, and we all just looked at each other and we were like, what the fuck were we thinking? Like, how did this happen? And not in a bad way, but in just sort of like, we wouldn't write that right now. You know, it's just like a totally different thing.
Next one is definitely not Idol 2. That is for sure.
Yeah,
no.
Not at all. Not at all. Okay. I don't know if that answers the question, but
I think that was fine. That's good. Like I said, you know, this is your interview, not talk about that stuff. I guess is there anything else? I mean, I guess we're sort of getting that time a little bit. Not that I can't stay here all night, but
yeah, I don't want to talk everyone's ears off to, you know, but I don't know. It's great to be able to talk about bands and our band as if like it exists again. So thanks for that. I'm like, I'm like starting to envision a future in which like these things aren't happening in a vacuum. You know, I did an interview with somebody like a couple months ago or something, or maybe farther back than that, and it felt like I was talking about this thing that wasn't real. You know, it was before the live show, the live stream shows where we got like a little bit of a taste of like people still give a fuck.
Sure.
And now it feels like, oh, maybe one day like all 4 of us can hang out at St. Vitus and we can play that show and like have a beer, you know?
Yeah.
So I'm just excited. The new record is ridiculous. I can't wait until it's out. I think people are going to just love it. It's so much fun. Such a fun album. Yeah, and I thank you. That's all I can say.
Thanks for joining. Yeah, thanks for
joining us. It's been great. And let us know when the new stuff is out. We'll promote it where we can, and really appreciate you coming on and spending some time.
Of course.
Yeah, thanks a lot.
Okay. Later, everybody.
See ya. Right. Take care.
Take care.